Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be using watercolour pencils for the very first time. So I'm recording this video beforehand as I really want a true reflection on how it does turn out. So my prediction for now is that I'm hoping for the best results that I would have from each medium separately. And what I mean by this is I'm really hoping I can get the detail that I usually would with coloured pencil, and I'm hoping for that nice elegant finish that I usually would have with watercolour, and to be able to combine the two would be absolutely amazing, which is why I'm really excited to try this new style with you today. Here's a little look at the watercolour pencils that I'll be using today. I decided to go for a 24 pack as I didn't want too little colour, so I had a very limited palette, but I also didn't want too many so that I didn't need to work on any blending. Having the 24 set perfectly balanced what I wanted to achieve for this particular painting I'm about to create, as I was able to blend a variety of colours and still achieve that perfect colour palette that I wanted to. So before I began with an actual painting, I thought it would be a good idea to take some colour swatches, mainly so I could see how they looked on the paper, how bright all the colours were, deciding if I needed to add more pressure, things like that. So these swatches really did come in handy. And I learned after doing the first couple that the more I spread out the pencil, the further the watercolour would travel and it made it look less patchy. So I dragged them to the side a little bit more before blending them out with some water rather than drawing squares like I did to start with. And this really helped with a nice consistent look throughout, with it fading across the page. And I was really happy with all of these swatches. Some of the colours were really bright and really light, but I think the more pressure that I added down, the darker they became, which is standard for watercolour anyway. The less water you add, the darker. So it kind of tied in with that general rule for watercolour, so I was really happy with the results of this. So once I became a little bit more familiar with watercolour pencils, I decided to actually create a drawing, as I thought this would be the best way to trial and error how things work while still creating a really nice piece of artwork. And my initial thoughts was to draw an eye, as this is a study I've done a couple of times to try out new materials, so I know it works really well for that. And that's mainly because you've got a very high level of detail within an eye, and you've got usually so many different shadows due to the reflection of the eye, and then you've got the skin tones and skin texture all the way around that. So I thought it'd be nice to do this as I could practice all of them different elements and tie everything together to create a really nice art piece. My initial thoughts to the watercolour pencils was I was very happy with how, especially the dark points of the eye, particularly the pupil, it got down on the paper really well, and it was very easy to darken this up, and I used a lot of pressure with the pencil before going in with the water, and I was very pleasantly surprised at how dark this became and how easy it was to emulate this. Another thing that I didn't really think about when using watercolour pencils is you don't need to pre-mix your colours, you can just put it all straight down on paper. So this is really good if you know how colour works already. You can go straight in with them colours, mix everything to get it right, get your shades right, and then go in with the watercolour. So it's really nice that you're able to do that from the get-go. I also found adding the small details on top of the eye once the paper had dried was really easy. So I had blended everything together with water for that base layer, and then I went in with the pencils to add all of them little lines that tie the eye together, and it was really nice that I was able to do this and not have to worry about control of the paintbrush. All of that detail was super simple to get down. And because it was so easy, it definitely helped with a more realistic finish, which was super easy to achieve. So I was really happy with the coloured pencils and how they worked with the eye. Personally, I've really struggled to start with getting my shadows right. That's not something that I've ever struggled with before, as with coloured pencils you just keep adding layer upon layer upon layer until you get all of them blended colours. But with these watercolour pencils, I personally found it really difficult to get my shadows right. I was very conscious that with all the pencil that I was adding down, I was then going to darken it and change it slightly with the water. So I was very conscious from the get-go that this was something to bear in mind, and I think it held me back a little bit getting my shadows right, but the more I worked with it, the more confident I got. So this is something that you'd expect with using any new medium, so it was nice to have that little bit of a challenge and see how things developed and how I got a little bit braver adding the pencil down. Another thing I also really struggled with these pencils was it was very difficult to layer. I found that once you added the water, you did need to wait for it to dry before going in and adding anything else down, which is standard for watercolour anyway, so that wasn't too difficult to work around. But adding actual layers was something that I found extremely difficult. I had to really work the pencils into the paper and add a lot of hard pressure. But I also think this has a lot to do with the type of paper that I'd used. It was watercolour paper, so layering on watercolour paper anyway is extremely difficult, especially in comparison to what I'm used to, which is coloured pencil paper, which aims to allow you to add all these layers. So I do think this was something that I just had to get used to, as opposed to the watercolour pencils being bad. So I was still overall very happy with these pencils and the results that I got from this painting. So working with watercolour pencils definitely was something different, and I think it will take a little bit of getting used to, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this medium. I thought I would to begin with, but I was so surprised at how easy it was putting the pencil down and then blending it out with water. I know it sounds silly because it's watercolour, but I was genuinely shocked. I think in my brain I thought it would be more like coloured pencils because it is in pencil form, so that took a bit of getting used to, but overall I am so happy with the results of this and I cannot wait to create more artwork using watercolour pencils. So to finish this eye drawing, I then went in with my darker colours to add all of the detail that I wanted to, particularly for the eyelashes. I think this really tied everything together. I also added the detail onto the white of the eye. You could see the reflection of the eyelashes on this, and it was really nice to be able to easily add in that detail. It also helped having the pencils to be able to add in the eyebrow hairs and all of them tiny little things that you sometimes can neglect with coloured pencils and sometimes struggle with watercolour. So it was nice to have it in pencil form and be able to do it really easily whilst it still looks like a watercolour painting. And all of this really tied everything together and created a really nice, easy painting. Here's a little look at the eye all finished. If you're wanting to check out more nature themed tutorials, check out the links in the description. You'll find access to my Patreon and my website, where you'll find all of my real-time tutorials. So there we have it. That is my thoughts on watercolour pencils. I've really enjoyed using these and I cannot wait to use them again at some point. So make sure you like and subscribe for more nature art content, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys!